Today, we are diving deep into one of the oldest and, honestly, one of the most intense football rivalries on the entire planet. But this is so much more than just a game. We're going to Rosario, Argentina, a city where football isn't just a sport. It's everything. It's identity, it's family, it's basically a civil war played out with a ball.
And look, to really get this rivalry, you've got to understand the city. The legendary footballer Jorge Valdano once said that being from Rosario is like an exaggerated form of being Argentinian. And that just nails it. You take a country that is absolutely fanatical about football, and then Rosario just cranks that dial all the way up. Here, football is life. And the Clásico, that's the day that defines your whole year.
So at the heart of all this passion, you have two clubs that literally slice the city in two. On one side, you've got Rosario Central. They were founded way back in 1889, and they're known as the Canallas. And on the other, you have Newell's Old Boys, started in 1903, the Leprosos. These are not just teams, they're two sides of the same coin, two halves of the city's very soul, and they are locked in a forever war for bragging rights. But to really understand just how deep this rivalry goes, you have to know where these nicknames came from. I mean, Lepers and Scoundrels, that's not exactly your normal team branding, right? And the origin story, well, it tells you everything you need to know about this feud.
Okay, so the story goes, back in the 1920s, a local hospital that cared for people with leprosy wanted to hold a charity match to raise some money. Newell's Old Boys, they immediately said, yep, we're in. Well, for doing a good deed, their rivals started calling them the Lepers to make fun of them. It was totally meant to be an insult, but the Newells fans, they just owned it. They turned it into this incredible badge of honor.
So what about Rosario Central? Well, they refused to play in that game. And in response, the Newells fans started calling them Canallas, which means scoundrels or villains. And just like Newells, the Central fans took this insult, they flipped it, and they started wearing it with total pride. And right there, in that one single story, you have the battle lines for the next 100 years.
And this hatred, it just caught fire during the amateur era. The very first official match was in 1905, a tight 1-0 win for Newells. But it was the huge blowouts that really poured gasoline on the flames. We're not just talking about wins, we're talking about humiliations. These scores became legends, forever burned into the identity of each club.
In 1917, Rosario Central delivered an absolutely crushing blow, a 9-0 victory. To this day, that is the biggest win in the Derby's history. For any Central fan, this number is everything. It's the ultimate trump card, a legendary day of pure, total dominance.
But, and this is what makes the rivalry so special, just 5 years before that, in 1912, it was Newells inflicting their own pain with a 7-0 beatdown. This just perfectly shows you the brutal back-and-forth heart of the Clásico. Each side has a legendary victory to cherish and a historic humiliation they're still trying to avenge.
So those early fights really just set the stage for some truly epic battles once the professional era kicked in. So now, we're going to look at 3 matches that are way more than just games. These are the foundational myths for each club, stories that grandparents tell their grandkids.
All right, first up for the Canallas. The year is 1971. It's the national championship semifinal. And who are they playing? Of course, it's Newell's Old Boys. A spot in the national final is on the line. The tension is just, you could cut it with a knife.
And then it happens. A guy named Aldo Pedro Poi launches himself through the air and scores his unbelievable diving header. La Palomita de Poi, the little dove. It's the only goal of the game. Central knocks out Newells, and then they go on to win their first ever national title. This goal is so iconic that every single year on December 19th, fans get together with Poi himself to reenact the goal. They even tried to get it in the Guinness Book of World Records as the most celebrated goal ever.
Okay, so how do you even respond to something like that? Well, if you're a leproso, you wait for your moment. And 3 years later, in 1974, Newells got their chance for the sweetest revenge possible. It's the last day of the season, and they just need a tie to win their first national championship.
And get this, where is this final, decisive match being played? At Rosario Central Stadium, in their house. The stage was set for either the ultimate glory or the ultimate humiliation. Central goes up 2-0. It looks like a complete disaster for Newells, but they claw their way back, and with this incredible late goal from Mario Zanabria, they tie it 2-2. Newells are champions in their bitter rival's backyard. Can you even imagine the scenes? Insane.
And finally, a day that went down in total infamy.
In 1997, the rivalry took a really bizarre turn in a match that Central fans will forever call the Day of Abandonment.
So Central was just completely dismantling Newells. They're up 4-0, Newells just loses it. They start picking up red cards, 1, 2, 3, 4 of them. Then, with the game completely lost, a fifth player suddenly goes down with a very mysterious injury. Now, the rules say you can't play with fewer than 7 players, so the ref has to call the whole thing off. The match was abandoned. For Central, it was absolute proof of their dominance. For Newells, a day of unbelievable shame.
So games like these, they don't just create stories. They create gods. They create legends. Men who stepped up under this insane pressure and basically wrote their names into club history forever.
Let's start with the guys who put the ball in the net. For Newells, Manuel Gonzalez is the all-time top scorer in the derby with a ridiculous 30 goals. For Central, that legend is Harry Hayes with 24. These were the guys who time and time again broke the hearts of the other half of the city.
And what about the guys who just lived this rivalry more than anyone? For Central, Jorge El Patón Gonzalez played in an incredible 45 Clásicos. 45! And for Newells, it's a tie between Santiago Santamaria and Mario Zanabria, the hero from '74, with 31 appearances each. These guys were the absolute soul of their clubs.
Okay, so we've heard the stories, we've met the legends, but in a rivalry this intense, it always comes down to one question, right? When you look at the cold, hard numbers, who really runs Rosario? All right, let's look at the complete, official head-to-head record. And there is a clear leader. Rosario Central has 99 wins to Newell's 77, with 103 draws. That is a big gap, and for any Canalla fan, this is it. This is the ultimate trump card.
So what about silverware? Trophies? When we count up the major official titles from the Argentine Federation in CONMEBOL, things get a little tighter. But again, Rosario Central has the edge, with 12 major trophies to Newell's 9. So on paper, the city is blue and yellow.
But, and this is the whole point, isn't it? This rivalry is about so much more than numbers on a page. This quote right here gets to the absolute heart of it. For a fan, this isn't a game. It's a fundamental part of who you are. Losing the Clásico isn't just a bad day. It's like losing your sense of direction, your purpose. A win isn't just a party. It's a validation of your entire existence.
And that kind of brings us to the final question. Yeah, Central leads and wins in titles, but does that really make them the winner? In a city where a diving header from 1971 is still celebrated like a national holiday, and where winning a championship in your enemy's house becomes a myth, victory is measured differently. It's measured in moments, in memories, in a passion that's so deep it actually defines an entire people. Maybe the real truth of the Clásico Rosarino is that the battle itself is the point. And in that battle, there are no winners or losers. There are only Canallas and Leprosos.